Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is May 23rd. You know what that means?
Pentecost.
It is the Christian day of Pentecost. It's going to be an awesome day. We actually have 2 shows we're going to do for you today. We're going to do our world news that we always do with you guys. And then we're going to take a hard break,
And then we're
like
do,
Steve
like,
Bannon likes to say.
We're going to do like ultra world news.
Then we're going to bring the fire. Shut up in my bones. I got fire. Shut up in my bones. I got fire. Shut up in my bones. And the devil can't stop me now. All right, so you can look forward to that. That's going to happen roughly in 50 minutes or so. I've got it scheduled on YouTube as Resistance Chicks Church. If you're not subscribed to the Resistance Chicks Church,
subscribe to Resistance. It was so funny.
Go subscribe to Resistance Chicks Church.
Tell the comment
right now.
One commenter on our Nigel video.
So we shared our Nigel video, and apparently there was somebody from the UK that's not a fan of Nige. And they left several comments that were disparaging to our dear friend Nigel,
Our dear
who we've
friend,
met.
Nigel.
Okay, and
Who
then
knows us?
Who knows
Says
us?
Says
We're kind of a big deal.
Actually, that's been said twice.
You know, Clay Clark said that.
What I love is like
You're kind of a big deal.
We moved up.
We went from
kind
of a big
to,
deal
to Nigel. Like, no, this is really a big deal.
This is a big deal.
I don't know how it's going to work out, but it was a big deal.
Anyway, and this person was like, look at you and your little channel with your 73 subscribers. Well, here's the deal. You guys today are going to go and make that. I think we could push a good 83 subscribers from today.
100. I'm thinking 25.
I think we can get from 73 to 100 on, you want to go to YouTube. Now, we're done with YouTube as far as Resistance Chicks goes.
Yeah, we're not.
That channel may or may not be here in a week. I don't know.
What are we at right now? We're
at
top out.
We're at 2 strikes and 107 videos deleted. Just in 4 days.
But here's the crazy
we're
thing.
probably at like 300 videos deleted total.
What's absolutely hilarious is that for other people and for our Mass Bay 3 channel, it was like, you know what, 3 strikes you're out. Why did they take down the Mass Bay 3 channel, but they just keep taking down videos with the Resistance Chicks? I don't know. We're not going to touch it. But everybody's like, why don't you just come up with a different name or different channel? The crazy thing is trying to get all of you there. And here's the thing. Once you're there, who's to say that they won't just take you all down?
That's right.
Take us down there. So we are going to do our church things there.
For sure.
And so if you're on BitChute, if you're on Rumble and you want to get notifications to get into a live chat for churchy type awesome powerful God things, go subscribe to Resistance Chicks Church. I can't promise you that it will be there forever. I can promise you that we'll be on Rumble and BitChute until Rumble and BitChute die.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a good place to be.
And Bright
and Bright to E on.
And
Bright to E on.
That's Mike Adams' platform there. And when Frank's speech is up and running.
Dear God. Lord, this is my prayer. Help Mike Lindell's tech team. Because
fight off the attacks.
All right. Speaking of fighting off the attacks, this is a huge story.
This is a big story.
This is actually, I've got, so to give you an overview of what we're going to cover today, Palestinians in the UK doing their thing, still protesting in the UK, what's going on in Israel and fighting Jews in Israel. This is like, no. You don't bring your turf wars over here. But those four, there's been 4 arrests in that car that went through the Jewish neighborhood yelling, I'm going to rape your daughters.
Wow.
They've actually arrested 4 people in that. Because I guess that kind of went a little bit overboard.
That was too much. That was too far, people.
Yeah, that's too far. So they did do a little something about that. 4 arrests out of like thousands, but whatever. There are some arrests there. I'm going to take you to Canada A. Yay. We're going to bring an update from Pastor Artur Pawlowski and a couple other pastors who have been arrested and released and arrested and released. And
they're so good at that.
And churches can put like crime tape around 3 or 4 churches that you can't go into. It's so sin, so funny, so surreal. In Toronto, they are giving the jab to kids without their parents there.
That one was,
boom.
hang on, let me flex and then it gets, no, not there. Go back to the right there. There you go.
That's not where you would jab, but it's kind of like a bone. Like
That's not a bone. It feels like a bone because I'm so strong.
Duh, but I don't think that's where they put the jab. They put it right here.
But that's muscle.
Okay.
Solid
Solid
muscle.
From lifting all those beatboxes.
Anyway, in Toronto, they are now allowing these health crazies to give the jab to children without parental consent. As long as the child can, as long as the health practitioner feels that the child is able to make the decision and know that they're getting this jab. I'm not saying
what is that word. Like an infant who can't talk is not applicable, but like a toddler.
Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, so we're gonna cover that. But this story for the UK and for around the world, I know that the world kind of feels like Princess Diana is the world's princess, yada yada yada. Listen, the royal family to me is a dysfunctional family unit. But I want to bring this to you because it represents everything wrong with the media.
Exactly.
That's and here's the thing. The story, maybe you guys saw this Bombshell interview with Princess Diana in 1995.
You probably, here's the deal. If you're over 45, you have seen this interview.
So in this interview, she talks about how she was, Prince Charles talked about her weight, so she became bulimic. She said there's 3 people in this marriage because, you know, he went back with Camilla, and she threw the royal family under the bus. And, you know, I really feel like Meghan's trying to do the same thing, but she's not doing it for the same reasons. Because Harry did not have an affair on her, but whatever.
Okay.
But to get this interview, the BBC is the BBC Panorama, right? The one that they do these documentaries.
They're so corrupt.
Okay. So this guy, this journalist named Martin Bashir, he was a nobody. He was a low-level journalist. Now, Princess Diana she was still married, by the way. She had turned down Barbara Walters, Oprah Winfrey, and a list of major TV hosts and interviewers. And why in the world, no one really could understand why she decided to bare her soul with what would become one of the... the world saw this interview. I mean, over years, they kept playing it. They got awards for this interview.
Yeah.
Well, the Martin Bashir goes to her brother with doctored documents, with doctored bank statements telling her that MI6 was after her and made her think that the royal family was out to get her.
Right.
And so this was her way of getting back and kind of like maybe even protecting herself. And Prince William's came out, her son, and said, oh my gosh. So what happened? Let me backtrack a little bit. Lord somebody, a former judge, he was tasked with investigating, did something amiss happen to get this interview? Why would this be a big deal? It's a big deal because the BBC is supposed to be neutral. You're not supposed to lie, and she was the UK's princess. Okay? And he doctored documents to get this interview to frame the royal family and in a light that, here's the thing, it's bad enough. You don't have to make things up. And
wait, no, what you mean is the royal family is bad enough. You don't have to make things up.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to make things up. But he wanted to get this interview, and the BBC knew that he doctored these documents, and they covered it up, and they covered it up, and they covered it. And finally, her brother made it this huge push because he was the one that was duped. And he went to Diana and said, because he didn't go straight to Diana. He went to her brother, and
so he feels responsible.
Yeah, and I guess there was an aide that was brought up into all this. So I'm going to play some videos. But here's the thing: the BBC's reputation is not just highly damaged. I have my YouTube taken down. I don't share fake news. I don't go and set up the Princess of Wales.
Oh my!
I don't have a stinking Twitter anymore.
I can't even.
So why do they have a Twitter? Why do they have? They literally can under a royal charter can forcibly take your money. I just want to be able to talk.
Speaking is good.
To speak.
Yes.
Listen, at this point, the BBC has to be done. What else have they done? We know that they covered up Mr. Pedo guy. You know,
Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, Jerry Savile. Jimmy. Whatever. Mr. Pedo guy. You know that they cover everything up. They are a system that is corrupt from the top down, bottom up.
Look at what they did to Tommy Robinson.
Exactly. All right, so go ahead and play some of these videos. Talk radio over here. Play the talk radio with Ian Collins here.
Marlene says, hi on this Sunday. I just subscribed to Resistance Chicks Church on your streaming live on my, and you're streaming live on YouTube so I'm streaming live on her big screen on YouTube. And she's commenting on Facebook. Marlene's come a long way. Marlene's been with us for 4 years. So are we live
on Resistance Chicks Church?
We're live on Resistance Chicks Church right now.
Okay, cool.
All right, so what am I playing right now?
The talk radio with Ian Collins. First, to the right. It's a Facebook one.
Okay.
Don't send any messages, y'all, while we go on live, or you're going to be seen.
That's a fact. I'm going to rewind it. Here we go.
And people do keep making those comparisons to Watergate for obvious reasons, of course, because it wasn't the initial incident. It was the cover-up and the lies that followed where the real damage was done. I can give you a catalogue of controversy and malfeasance surrounding the BBC. Let's have a look at some of the issues on the roll call of journalistic doom at the BBC. And do you know what? Panorama goes in the dock on a number of occasions. There's a lot of examples of Panorama. Newsnight as well, Panorama in the dock. Maggie's militant tendency. This was about extremists in the Conservative Party back in 1984. That resulted in 2 Conservative MPs being awarded tens of thousands of pounds in compensation because they simply made stuff up. Neil Hamilton, interestingly, was one of those MPs. Bob Geldof and the African weapons story, all the money being raised for life is going into weapons. It was absolute balderdash, false claims in their news. Remember the editing of the Queen documentary? An inside story. A production company got the inside scoop on following the Queen around, and they put a trail out. The trail actually showed the Queen storming out of a photo session, except she didn't. They just re-edited it to make it look as if she did. The editing of the miners' strike footage, again back in the 80s, so that it showed a completely different narrative for the one that was actually going on. Furthermore, up to date, 2008, fake footage of child labour in Bangalore. Then there was the Lord McAlpine story. The Director General had to resign over that. Remember when he was named by, it was Sally Burko, wasn't it, who ended up libeling McAlpine back. And then that story was discussed with absolutely no recourse for Lord McAlpine to come on and defend himself. The Director General had to walk the plank over that one, although they did give him £1.3 million in the process. Emily Maitlis and her countless party political broadcasts. There was that as recent as last year, the Panorama about the NHS and PPE. Remember when a series of Labour activists were used as contributors without a single reference to their Labour elite? I remember watching this thinking, hang on, all these people have been on my show quite regularly. There's Sonia Adesera, there's various other characters in the Labour story. I thought, that's weird. Why are they talking to all these guys? They're all Labour people. Not a reference to that. Bad day again. That was Panorama, the death of David Kelly and the dodgy dossier. The Cliff Richard debacle, when the BBC decided to imitate a Yankee cable network and sent up the chopper for a raid on Cliff Richard's house. They colluded with the local constabulary in the process. The whole story was invented. It was nonsense. There was nothing to see here. Why were the BBC even going there? And even Blue Peter, in 2007, they ran a competition to name the new Blue Peter cat. All right, listen to this. Viewers chose the name Cookie. They wanted the name Cookie, and they added up all the votes, and Cookie it was. And all the kids who voted Cookie were obviously hoping theirs would be selected, because that's how many got the right amount of votes. Cookie. Cookie, the new Blue Peter cat. 2007. Hello, they all said. Welcome to Blue Peter. And meet our new cat, Socks. Sorry? Socks. It's Cookie. Socks. It's meant to be called Cookie. More kids voted for Cookie. We called it Socks. They rigged a cat ballot on Blue Peter. You know, that cat will always be Cookie to me. Boy, have they got questions to answer over there at the BBC. So what is the future? What should that future look like? 0344 499 1000. We have been in this territory many times. We've discussed what we think the future of the BBC should be.
Someone right over. This is Prince William's response
to all of this coming out. This is kind of the biggest part of the show.
Yeah.
Because how does this affect when we all watched Princess Diana die, essentially, okay? And we saw what the kids went through because it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, they're the world's children.
Right.
Okay? So this affected... We may not be a big fan of Harry right now, but, like, this affected Harry and William more than anyone.
And it all goes back to the Martin. And here's the thing. There were questions right after the interview how he got it. The BBC knew then.
Yeah.
And Diana would actually still be alive. And he doesn't say she'd still be alive, but it might have actually saved the marriage. It might have fixed things. It could have gone down a different trajectory. Nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
If she hadn't done this interview and felt like MI6 is after me and all these bank statements and all this craziness, and they knew right then, and they could have told her then.
Right.
And then she would have had a real enemy to go after.
Exactly.
That BBC employees lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother, made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia, displayed woeful incompetence when investigating complaints and concerns about the programme, and were evasive in their reporting to the media and covered up what they knew from their internal investigation. It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse and has since hurt countless others. It brings indescribable sadness to know that the BBC's failures contributed significantly to her fear, paranoia, and isolation that I remember from those final years with her. But what saddens me most is that if the BBC had properly investigated the complaints and concerns first raised in 1995, my mother would have known that she had been deceived. She was failed not just by a rogue reporter, but by leaders at the BBC who looked the other way rather than asking the tough questions. It is my firm view that this Panorama programme holds no legitimacy and should never be aired again. It effectively established a false narrative which for over a quarter of a century has been commercialised by the BBC and others.
Totally commercialised.
This settled narrative now needs to be addressed by the BBC and anyone else who has written or intends to write about these events. In an era of fake news, public service broadcasting and a free press have never been more important. These failings, identified by investigative journalists, not only let my mother down and my family down, they let the public down too.
Wow. So that was really powerful.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You got another one?
The other Facebook one. Play them all before more messages come up.
Okay. This one, it's just Leah telling me what to title the show.
I know.
Behind the scenes, you guys get it.
Morning, Julia.
Good morning. Now, the significance of all of this won't have passed you by. This report, 127 pages. It's not just damning of the Martin Bashir, the Panorama, pretty junior reporter at the time who got this interview. It's damning of all those involved in getting the procuring of the interview and the cover up a year later and the subsequent covers up years after years after years, even to last year. Obviously, we now know that this all came out not because the BBC went, oh dear, we've done something awful, but because it was exposed once again by Freedom of Information requests and Earl Spencer speaking out. The prospect of civil action now, the prospect of criminal action. Earl Spencer has called for Scotland Yard to launch a criminal investigation. What crimes have taken place?
Well, the most simple and straightforward one is the deceit that was practiced involved libelling senior palace courtiers. So, for example, they were told that they were sources for newspapers, which was entirely untrue, and rocked a vulnerable woman, Princess Diana, in her faith and trust in those courtiers. So, of course, things were exacerbated by that. But there were also people who lost their jobs. There were people at the palace who lost their job. And there was also, of course, the designer who mocked up completely innocently for Martin Bashir the fake bank accounts and he never worked for the BBC again. So he's probably got a claim for the last 25 years at 100,000 a year, and that alone is 2.5 million pounds. So this is a serious amount of licence payer money that is being cast about here.
And no doubt that the huge extra fees for the lawyers as well. I mean, again, it's our money being used to cover up bad doings by people who were on our payroll already. But in terms of
well, of course, the other thing about that is that this would be far, far cheaper if people had come clean at the beginning. You know, it's always the cover-up that causes the problems. And of course, you know, the BBC hoped Lord Dyson's report would draw a line under it. Of course, it doesn't, because what it does is leave open the discussion, because essentially he stops looking at things in 1994. What he hasn't done is been able to look at the way in which the Freedom of Information requests were dealt with and the 25-year cover-up.
So not 1994. Sorry, Mark, not 1994. That was obviously 2004.
2004.
Right, of course, and we know, and again, the cover-ups continued from then on. Very senior figures involved, you know, right up to Lord Hall, you know, right up to other leading figures. Lord Burt, although somehow seems to, as former Director General, get away scot-free on this. But the idea that this interview, the idea of the interview with the wife of the estranged wife of the future King of England, that interview on Panorama would not have gone up right to the very, very top echelons before, after, and every time an allegation was made, that would not go right to the top is frankly a nonsense, isn't it? And that's where we also
it totally is. And of course, the other thing about this was the scoop of the decade. You know, as you say, you know, millions of people watched the interview live, and this was a relatively junior reporter, and all other more senior reporters hadn't been able to get in. And the only reason he got in was to betray the trust that Lord Earl Spencer had placed in him and get an introduction to his sister. And the thing that's quite astonishing about this, in any normal organisation, once the forgery has been discovered, you'd call the police in and see whether prosecution was appropriate, and you would have instantly dismissed them for the deceit that had been practised. Instead, the BBC turns this man into their religious correspondent. It beggars belief.
Yeah, indeed. Again, we saw this again with what happened with Jimmy Savile. I think there are lots of echoes here. When the Newsnight wanted to do a report exposing Jimmy Savile and his horrific abuse of children, the BBC basically sat on it, and everybody involved in it basically ended up being sidelined or losing their job, forced out of the BBC, whereas those who insisted on the cover-up, they pretty much all to a man and woman got promoted. Is this an endemic problem at the BBC? Is this something that can be resolved? And how many heads do you think are going to have to roll for there to be trust in the BBC again, or do you think that that's now gone for good?
Well, I think that there has to be a change, but it has to be a demonstrable change. So they've got to demonstrate that they've done absolutely everything, that they've made reparations to the people who were essentially abused.
No, it's not the reparations.
And as a consequence of that, you know, there are going to be court actions, and that cover-up and the failure to answer straightforwardly the Freedom of Information Act, which is there to hold them accountable and to deal with that properly, I think is going to be exposed in the civil proceedings to come, and they will be scrutiny. So rather than drawing a line under this in Dyson's report, this is merely chapter 1. Chapter 2 is probably uglier and follows in the civil courts of London.
But what about criminal courts? As I mentioned earlier, Earl Spencer has called for Scotland Yard to launch a criminal investigation.
Well, as I said, you know, in any normal organisation, when you discover forgery, you would have called in the police to ask, you know, is there something here that should be prosecuted? The fact that they didn't even do that also smacks of something of a cover-up, because they obviously didn't want the scrutiny, particularly because it was embarrassing for them how they had dealt with Princess Diana. And so, of course, the police must have a look at this now. It may be that the moment has passed, but there is no time limit on criminal prosecutions, and clearly the police should look into it.
Mark Stevens, thank you very much for joining us. Media lawyer Mark Stevens.
Here's the deal. Okay, so we're done with those videos, right?
Yeah.
So now I can give my commentary. So here's the deal that you need to understand about, we just watched the emotional, response from Prince William.
Yeah.
And regardless of how you feel about the royal family, Prince William is a conservative, and so is his grandmother. His dad is, I don't have a lot of good things. I don't have anything good, really. Maybe
He's a great
the
resetter.
farming. I've got nothing, okay, for Prince Charles. But for Prince William, I have a little bit of hope, okay? And so what I'm excited to see, what I was excited to hear him say at the end was, in the era of fake news. This is not about the royal family for me in this story. I know for you guys in the UK, it may be. But for me, this is an expose on how these corrupt people in the media have been molding our society and minds with falsehoods for many decades now. Okay. And I want you guys to be excited. It's the day of Pentecost. What God is doing right now is exposing it all and bringing it to the surface. There is no question in my mind that that's why this is coming to light right now, is to show the rest of the world what we and you already know about the media.
Yeah. So on these bank statements, two forged bank statements which Bashir commissioned from a graphic designer and which purported to show payments of thousands of pounds to Earl Spencer, her brother's former head of security from newspaper company News International and another company. The suggestion was that Bashir had used the documents to gain the trust of Earl Spencer and Diana in order to land the interview.
This is 1995, okay?
Yes.
Nowadays, he could have sent that to me and I could have come up with it super simple. But back then, you had to go somewhere to get these kind of forged documents to make them look real.
Yeah, the BBC said at the time, we have confirmed that in no way were the documents used to gain an interview with Princess Diana. Press reports also said that Wessler had brought the existence of the documents to the BBC's attention in December 1995, and the corporation had conducted an internal investigation. The BBC said that the princess had provided a handwritten letter to confirm she was more than happy with the way the interview was arranged and conducted. After the revelations came to light, the BBC opened up a second inquiry. On April 29th, 1996, BBC head of news Tony Hall's report concluded that Bashir wasn't thinking when he commissioned the graphic, but was ultimately an honest man who was not trying to mislead. But Hall said Wessler will not work for the BBC
How do you
again.
forge a document and not try to mislead someone? Can anybody explain that to me? Because otherwise you would come with the forged document and say, hey, this is forged, but what do you think? There's no other way around that.
Yeah. He went on to do a lot of more crazy interviews. In 2008, he apologized after saying he was happy to be in the midst of so many Asian babes in a speech to the U.S. journalists at the Asian American Journalists Association. He said some horrible things. And then he goes on to, work for the BBC.
So he was a perv. That
he was
quote
a
that
pervert.
Leah didn't read,
Yeah.
he was a perv.
Yeah. Yeah. He calls Miss Palin in 2013 a world-class idiot. And then they're supposed to be neutral, by the way. Then he becomes the BBC's religious affairs correspondent in 2016.
For religion? The perv?
Yeah.
The liar? The forger?
That's how it works.
Wow.
So Bashir and the bank statements in 2020 came under scrutiny again when ITV and Channel 4 broadcast documentaries to mark the 25th anniversary of the interview with Diana. Wessler told ITV he had been under the impression that the documents he was making were simply props for filming purposes, and he left the media industry in 1999 and said he was made to be the fall guy by the BBC. The BBC said it had apologized for the fake documents and promised a new robust...
Yeah?
It said 2:15.
That's for the Pentecost thing.
Oh, I've been waiting this whole time.
Oh, no. Robust and independent investigation, mom. Poor mom. Did I do it over here? Bashir did not comment with the BBC, saying that he was recovering from a quadruple heart bypass surgery and COVID-19. Princess Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, also called for a BBC inquiry over the bank statements. He went on to make new allegations about how the BBC gained his trust and access to his sister prior to the interview. Earl Spencer said that notes he made at the time of a meeting he held with Bashir suggest the reporter made a number of false and defamatory claims about senior royals. So November of last year, the BBC said it had located the handwritten note sent by the princess after the interview that it said was previously missing. And then the BBC appointed Supreme Court Judge Lord Dyson. He vacuumed up the truth to conduct the new inquiry. That was a good Dyson.
That's good. Oh, I didn't get it.
Dyson?
I didn't get it.
Okay.
I did not get that
The
joke.
move
I'm
was
sorry.
welcomed by Diana's son, Prince William. So,
Hang on. So Barry says Scotland Yard are being given immense pressure to bring charges against the BBC now and are looking at doing so.
So Bashir stepped down as the religious editor this week.
I'm so glad. That's good. And now what?
It looks like May 16th of this year, the BBC delayed a panorama investigation into the original interview with Princess Diana due to significant duty of care issue.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. That's
It's like a
dancing
word
around.
salad.
Yeah. I don't know. There's some pecans in there, little nuts. I don't know.
No, it doesn't even look like it tastes good.
May 20th of this year, Lord Dyson's report is published and found that the BBC fell short of high standards of integrity and transparency. Lying. Why
called
can't they just say
lying.
lying? I hate this. Ethical breaches. Just say they lied. Can we just say they lied? Do we have to dance around the word lie? Bashir acted in a deceitful way. Can we just say he lied? He lied.
No, this is good. This is good. Okay, so anyone that's writing this, if your spouse has an affair on you, are you going to tell everybody that they acted in a deceitful way?
And an internal probe in 1996 was woefully ineffective. Missed it. Messed up.
Hang on, though. Listen, you don't believe the liar, but at the same time, BBC is a liar, too. So you've got two liars talking about each other. And Bashir says that BBC is making him the fall guy. So I'm kind of going, you know what? Could have come from somebody above Bashir.
No. The graphic artist guy said he was made to be the fall guy.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Bashir's whatever.
But I'm just saying,
he
I believe
is the guy. No, it is all his fault.
Is it though?
Yes.
Yes, it's his fault. It's unequivocally his fault. He's the reporter. But do you think he just literally was sitting alone at home thinking, I'm going to do this, and nobody else at the BBC was involved?
That's a good question.
Come on.
Yeah.
Doubt it.
Yeah. So how did Bashir get rehired in 2016? The post was filled after a competitive interview process. And now, of course, there's Dyson's report. He has resigned from the BBC. There has been no payoff. Will his other work be reviewed? As with any editorial issue, look at where the evidence goes. So there you have it, guys.
Hang on. Marlene Allen says,
Craziness.
Leah,
What?
that was a clean joke, not a dirty joke. Get it? Mm-hmm. No, then she made a joke.
We're all vacuuming
all right,
things up here.
Britt Baza says, Michelle, an engraver is a forger. LOL. That's why we are a restrictive profession in World War II, 1 and 2. But I don't forge anything. Otherwise, I would be very rich.
That's
exactly. Awesome. It was a smear campaign, says Mars Jupiter. Yeah, it was.
Go ahead I have a YouTube video up here. Play the this morning one. It's going to be the middle one. Yeah.
Got it.
Kind of go in like 20 seconds. And you're muted. Yep.
Come to you first. You tell us, it's certainly heartbreaking, but it seems to me this is almost unprecedented for the future King of England to come out and say something like this.
Absolutely. I mean, he's made the punchiest statement there, hasn't he? Both in person so that people can see the raw emotion on his face, but equally in writing. And let's just take ourselves back to 1995 when Panorama aired this sensational interview with Diana and Martin Bashir, in which famously she referred to Camilla Parker Bowles as the third person in her marriage with Prince Charles. By that point, they had been separated, but this was the interview that led to their divorce. It was so sensational because Diana also touched on her own mental health problems, the fact that she had been self-harming, suffering from bulimia after her pregnancy with Prince William. Equally, she questioned Charles's fitness to be king. It was explosive. It was watched by nearly half of the British population. It went around the world and it won the BBC countless awards and plaudits for Bashir himself. Having said that, in the immediate aftermath of this interview and into 1996, which Diana later described as the worst year of her life, things started falling apart. First of all, there was a spotlight on the interview itself and suggestions that perhaps this interview had been obtained by unethical methods. The BBC seemed to cover that up at the time. There was an investigation which basically concluded nothing to see here. But as we now know, that interview set in pattern a chain of events that ultimately led to Princess Diana's demise. Her brother Earl Spencer, who was the one who initially was courted by Bashir with a number of claims and smears and this forged paperwork, effectively creating an environment that both the Earl Spencer and Princess Diana thought that people within their inner circle were briefing against them. So effectively creating this climate of fear and paranoia, which then motivated Princess Diana to effectively give this 1-hour confessional. We know that, but we also know that the interview itself led to her making a number of decisions. She had to get divorced at that point because the Queen was so angry with her doing the interview that she ordered Charles and Diana to basically agree their final separation. She was then stripped of her HRH style, and then she took the disastrous decision to dispense with her bodyguards. At that point, as she goes into 1997, she's cutting quite an isolated figure. She's not really in touch with her mother, her brother, her closest friends. And then we all know, if we fast forward to August of 1997, what happened in Paris. So direct correlations are being made, at least by her brother, to this interview. And I think the fallout now, as William has described, is enormous for the BBC. The levels of dishonesty employed by Bashir, but equally, as William has pointed out there, the high-level nature of the cover-up of what happened, so that we're only now finding out how this interview was obtained 25 years later, I think is hugely damning for the national broadcaster.
Okay. And Camilla, what does this actually mean now for...
Wow. Yeah. Absolutely crazy. So my ruling is no more BBC. You're done. You're fake news.
Done. You fake news.
Fake news. Fake news. All right. So Twitter bans a Spanish politician for saying that men can't get pregnant. Twitter refused to comment on a 12-hour ban of the Spanish politician Francesco Jose Contreras.
How dare you?
Leader of the Vox Party. We've been following him for a while. The leading populist conservative party in the country. Why did Twitter ban Contreras? How do you say that? Contreras? Because he said men can't become pregnant. In the tweet that got him suspended. This is like a Babylon Bee. I feel like Sundays are just like Babylon Bee over and over again.
My gosh.
Contreras said, a man cannot get pregnant. A man has no uterus or eggs. You evil man.
Now here's the deal. In health class, we all learned this.
Yeah.
I am terrified to think of what kids are learning in health class now.
Oh, I don't know.
Like, is that not even allowed to be used? I mean, we've got no biology involved
its automated message informing him of the suspension. Twitter told Contreras that no...
Wait, stop. Hang on. I gotta get this out. Okay? Here's the deal. Katie Hopkins uses the phrase hurty words. Hurty words. Yeah. Words that hurt. Hurty words is the way that she says that. Go back to Shakespeare.
Yeah.
A rose, if it should be called by any other name, would it not smell so sweet? Okay? I don't care what you call it. The body that has a wee-wee, okay, and doesn't have a uterus cannot have a baby. Okay? You can call it a male body. You can call it a female body. I don't care what body you call it. A body of water. We are made up of mostly water, okay? You can call it a being. You can call it an apple. I don't care what you call it. But that body, the flesh, physically cannot have something grow inside of it and become a human being and come out of the holes that are down there. There's only 2 in that body, and I can guarantee you something the size of a bowling ball is not coming out of it. Okay? I don't care if you call it a man. What is your problem? I'm done. Keep going.
I have been blocked from Twitter for 12 hours for hate speech, said the Spanish politician. The hateful tweet, which I was forced to delete, was one that said,
Hateful. It's so hateful.
a man cannot get pregnant. A man has no womb or eggs.
Oh my goodness.
You can see this is already fascist biology. Next time I'll try 2 + 2 = 4. Twitter's policy on speech regarding transgenderism has grown increasingly draconian over the years. In January, the platform suspended a conservative organization for stating the transgender assistant secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services biological sex. It was also suspended the account of Lauren Witzke, who ran for U.S. Senate in Delaware last year as Republican candidate after she condemned a comment from a gender nonconforming left-wing activist who appeared to defend the sexualization of minors. She condemned the comment as demonic, and she's gone. So, another craziness.
Okay, so his last name is Contreras.
I think
He's
so.
too contrary.
I thought so.
He's
I
too
thought so.
contrary.
I don't like to spend a lot of time on these people, but Prince Harry has lamented that his
I don't know, match Harry's hat.
okay, that his he doesn't want to be British anymore. By the way, he's in America.
Yeah, what's with your hat,
He's
Harry?
in
You
America.
don't get to wear the Harry hat. No, put it the other way you had it. There you go. No, just do it the right way, would you please?
Everybody wears it on the side.
No, they don't. It's going to fall off and you're going to be talking sideways the whole time. Just wear it right. Come on now. It doesn't. There you go. That looks better.
Woke Harry laments genetic pain of upbringing. Brand's First Amendment is bonkers. So Prince Harry's, the husband of Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, has lamented the genetic pain of his upbringing and compared royal life to being a zoo animal. Speaking
Didn't we talk
on
about that last week?
No, his genetic pain of
Right.
growing up.
I know.
His abusive
I
childhood.
thought we talked about last week. Is that...
No, we talked about the First Amendment thing, but it's new where he suggested that he has a story. He's a victim.
He's a victim.
He's a victim. He's a victim.
Tell that to every person watching Hallmark movies.
He went on the podcast with Dax Shepard.
Yeah, because he's such a serious guy.
Yeah. Who described Harry as a rad dude.
Rad dude.
The British royal kicked off the interview by telling off comedian and martial arts color commentator Joe Rogan for recent comments questioning the value of the coronavirus vaccines for healthy young people. Then he lurched into a brief discussion of the way online algorithms create echo chambers of no pushback.
Really? Because I kind of think the opposite is happening with those algorithms. I'm just saying. They
are creating echo chambers with no pushback.
That they're creating echo. Oh, Joe Rogan said that? I thought you were saying that Dax Shepard was saying that about the right.
See, Joe Rogan's questioning the value and then lurched into, I don't know which one was
That sounds like a Joe Rogan statement because that actually is true and really happening.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that Dax would say that.
No. That was Prince Harry because he went on to suggest that people responsible for such algorithms are all male and all white.
So wait a minute. So Prince Harry, this is so rich. So what is happening?
By the way,
you know what liars
he's
do?
really, really white.
You know what liars do?
You know, the really pale skin with the red hair.
We know that they are doing it because it's not just liars, criminals. When criminals do something, and I'm talking about you could just be a little criminal or a big criminal, or maybe you just have had an affair or something. I keep using that as an example. But whatever it is that you're trying to cover up in your life, you all of a sudden start saying it. You can't not talk about it, but you talk about it as if it's someone else. So Harry knows that they're using algorithms and he knows that they're creating echo chambers. Yeah. And so he has to say it out loud. Right. And so he's going to say it as if the right is doing it when the complete opposite is true.
He suggested that his decision to share his story came from a place of courage and complained that some quarters of the media appeared to think he couldn't be suffering because he's privileged. He explained that a lot of genetic pain and suffering. This reminds me of the guy who created Wonder Woman. I know I'm going on a rabbit trail. He would go to these like struggle sessions with feminist women, and he came out like this major weird pervert and created like this throuple. And it's just really weird. So Harry is going to these struggle sessions or something with Meghan and doing all these things like bring your pain. Like he's trying to identify with the pain. He thinks that his half white, half black wife is somehow, even though she's a multimillionaire, became a very successful actress, blah, 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 blah. She doesn't even look black, but whatever. It doesn't even matter. That somehow he has to identify her as a victim. And so then in order to like be equal, he has to be a victim. So
Wait a
they're
minute.
victims
I'm
together.
really
They're
confused, though.
multi-million-dollar victims together.
Though, okay? Because I thought that privileged people cannot be a victim at all, ever. So he's white, so he has white privilege. He's royal, so he has royal privilege. And I don't even know what the percentage of the world is that has that kind of privilege. He's male, so he has that privilege. He's got money, so he has that privilege. He has every possible privilege, and yet he's coming out and saying...
But he has a lot of genetic pain that got passed on him by his father, Prince Charles.
Oh my gosh.
And appeared to indicate that he had in turn been badly parented by the Queen and her recently deceased husband, Prince Philip. Suddenly, I started to piece it all together. Suddenly, he started to piece it all together and go, okay, so this is where he went to school.
I feel like
this is what happened. I know this about his life. I know that this is connected to his parents. So this means he treated me the way he was treated. So how can I change that for my own kids? Now, that's actually a very good thing to do when you're truly abused by people. And here I am. I moved my whole family to the U.S. And that wasn't the plan. But sometimes you've got to make decisions to put your family first and put your mental health first.
Really?
The Royal, more specifically, likened it to a mixture between the Truman Show and being in a zoo. It's the job, right? Grin and bear it. Get on with it. I was in my early 20s and I was thinking, I don't want this job. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what it did to my mom. How can I ever settle down and have a wife and a family?
All of those questions, I think, are totally valid. So here's what I think is happening.
You take a piece of truth and then you begin to twist it.
It's
right.
Honestly, and I'm not trying to say Harry is a victim here, but I think Harry is a little bit of a victim here of people playing like religious and psychological mind games on the abuses that he did legitimately suffer. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to be doing this to him. I think that he did suffer trauma. He was very young. His mom was very unstable. The British family is unstable. And what the public did to this child is wrong.
He also raised the issue of so-called unconscious bias, suggesting that those who are made aware of it but choose not to tackle it are leading towards racism. So he's been schooled in his unconscious bias, how he's probably a racist male.
He's probably racist marrying a black person. That's so racist, you racist.
Guys, this woke junk is just so nasty, and this girl is just evil incarnate. I just had to tell you. Listen, they take truths and they twist it. Dude, listen, here's the thing. He had no more trauma than your average regular kid.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that right now. Okay, his mom died, but you look around, he partied, he had friends, he was in the Navy, he has all in the military, he's smiling, he's happy, okay? Then this girl comes along and was like, release your pain. Release your pain. And,
hang on. What you're saying is then the average, I would disagree with you slightly. Most people that have, in America anyway, that have like two parents, okay, they can have kind of some trauma, but his mom did go crazy. His family, his uncle, wacko perv on Epstein Island, okay, like, I'm just saying.
But he's not coming after the right stuff.
Kids
he's
are
not coming.
Suffering. Like he said, I felt like I was in a zoo, meaning everybody's looking at me. But the media's there all the time.
Yeah, that's part of being part of anybody who's in politics, or if your parents are celebrities. And if you don't want that, why are you doing interviews with Oprah and Dax Shepard?
Right.
Okay, so he's lying. She's lying. He didn't feel like he was in a zoo. He enjoyed it. He got to meet Meghan. He got to go hang out with Serena Williams. That's how they met, because the Queen meets with the people from Wimbledon. So he's hanging out. He's rubbing shoulders. Okay.
I would say as an adult, he probably felt that way, and I think that what happened is, as a child, no kid really wants to be pulled out in the limelight
if you
like that.
felt like you were in a zoo, you would go live in the mountains in Colorado and never talk to anybody ever again. This is playing on what most people would feel like they were in a zoo, being followed around. It's like this. A girl who wants to get the guy to like her, and she's playing and teasing.
Listen,
he's teasing.
Leah, we don't need to disagree here, because I don't think we're disagreeing. I'm saying that his childhood Was he raised with the love of God? No.
No.
Was he raised with
No.
two parents that follow Jesus Christ? No.
No.
Was he raised in a country that is kind of, no offense to
Okay.
all my UK people. So he
At this
had
point, though,
a
he is a
childhood.
grown male.
Yes, at this point, he's a grown male. I'm saying
No, but okay.
that we all have, many of us have traumas as a child.
But
I
he's
would
not
put-
working through them, is what I'm saying.
I would put Harry's in a category that is a little bit more significant than some other people's traumas.
Okay.
Now, however that ended up, whatever, I think that whoever is playing on whatever traumas that he has as a child and is morphing them and manipulating
My
them.
point
and
is, this is
whatever.
my point, okay? Their words make people feel sorry for them.
Yes.
But they're just words. He has not reached the place where he's
Exactly.
actually dealing with any real trauma.
Exactly.
He's fine.
Right.
Okay?
He fine.
Hasn't reached the trauma. Here's the thing. If you reach the trauma, he's out. Megan's gone.
Exactly.
He gets back with his, I don't know if he gets back with his family or whatever, but like, we all have things we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay? So on the hierarchy, there are people who lose their mom, but they don't have $1 million in the bank and can take a private jet wherever they want.
Right.
Okay? And so he is playing on this, woe is me, my
Don't get me
mom
wrong,
died.
I'm not saying that he's in the right here.
No.
He is unequivocally in the wrong.
I don't
I'm
think
not saying that he is even a victim of Meghan Markle. He chose
Here's the thing.
this life.
If he's going around saying, I feel like I'm in a zoo, and he's in a Breitbart article,
Exactly.
and I'm talking about him because
Exactly.
he's going on interviews, making the world all about him.
That's right.
This is a psychological manipulation.
That's exactly right.
Okay,
Because
and, he is now part of
he-
the abuse of the rest of the world. He's abusing us,
And he's
telling me.
playing on the emotions of people who would think to themselves, oh, he probably did feel like he was in a zoo because,
right.
you know, that's how you would feel.
So why am I discussing him? Because he is actually abusing me.
Yeah.
He has millions of dollars, lives in a mansion, can go or be wherever he wants.
Bingo.
Okay? And then he gets on his high horse with his daddy telling me he wants to great reset the entire globe, telling me I can't fly, but he wants to fly private, telling me I need to be more eco-friendly, but he's got a multi-million-dollar mansion.
But Leah, he goes on stage barefoot, so.
So he is abusing the rest of the world.
Yep.
In his
And
words,
no, and
with
that
the climate
happens.
change, and telling us that we don't deserve to live. We shouldn't be here because we are destroying the environment. Yada yada yada. Him and his dad with the whole Great Reset thing, trying to say they literally want to eliminate the rest of us, but live way up here. He still has a royal mentality. I am great. I deserve these millions. He literally came out and said they cut me off financially.
All right, listen. So here's what happens. There are people who were molested as children. I don't know, maybe Harry was. And they grow up and they work through it, or they don't, or they live sheltered lives, but they don't go on to perpetrate the abuse. They don't become abusers. Then there are children who were molested and they grow up and become child molesters themselves. Okay. And so what you're seeing here is a child who was a full grown man who was abused as a child, who has grown up and has made the choice to continue to abuse. So Princess Diana would have been one of those people who probably, because she was royalty, she grew up, I'm sure, in none of that is right. It's not God, okay? Who was probably abused as a child, and she grew up, and then all of a sudden she kind of made a decision like, you know what? I think that there's something wrong here, and I'm not going to perpetuate this abuse. On. So,
my big beef is that this man is going around telling me how I need to live my life. And his dad is next in line to the throne for the UK, telling people how they need to have electric cars, how they need to rein it in and eat organic and stuff like that, where he has grown up in this immense amount of privilege. He owns all this land and he can have whatever he wants whenever he wants.
All right,
and,
so what's the rest of your stories? We've got to do our Pentecost show. We've got 37 minutes to do all of that. Finish the show and Pentecost.
City of Toronto. Youth do not need to attend a clinic with a parent or a guardian, as parental consent is not required to receive a vaccine, provided the healthcare provider administering the vaccine deems the youth capable of understanding the decision
to be whatever.
To be vaccinated.
Well, I try not to say it because we're going to, but whatever.
Yeah. The jab.
Ivermectin.
So I want to can you bring this chart? We're just going to leave this here for your review and consideration. This should be sufficient information to allow you to make a reasoned judgment with the mountains of published evidence. What do you say the outcome? What would you say the outcome you would expect? Okay, so India was using ivermectin as a prophylactic and hydroxychloroquine and things like that. Then the WHO said, no, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad.
Okay.
Cases skyrocketed. And there was all these people, you know, getting COVID and la, 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 la. So these Indian states, and you can scroll down just a little bit so you can see the next one. All these Indian states said, we've got to do something after the spike. And what they did was they started to prescribe ivermectin for people who went home with the positive test, and for people in the house caring for them. And can you see the drop? You can see the drop.
That's crazy. Yep.
So quinine, hydroxychloroquine, quercetin, all these things help to help, and vitamin D3. But this is ivermectin is working in India.
That's awesome.
And the WHO tell them don't do that. CDC tells them don't do that. And this is the push for this. This is the push for this, because guess what? This whole thing has made, I think, I posted an article, 5 or 6 new billionaires just from the big pharma.
Yep.
Because ivermectin's so cheap, nobody's getting rich off of that.
Exactly.
So this is a vast conspiracy, by the way. Okay, go to the next one here. This is the anti-lockdown protests in Canada are being deemed white supremacists. Do these look white supremacy to you?
Don't want to have the debate. They don't have to have a debate about what is happening right now in our country. And we have the data on our side. We have the science on our side. But it's not about science. It's about compliance. And so they want to control the population. And I believe that a lot of people like us want our freedom back.
How does that make you feel? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Well, it's an attempt to divide people, right? It's to create divisions and scapegoat. And what they're trying to do is ostracize us and discredit our movement as like their own boogeyman, so to speak.
It's not white supremacist, nothing to do with that. It's people are sick of lockdowns, like the amount of businesses downtown that have closed down, the amount of restaurants, it's all bullshit. Open up.
I mean, I think this whole thing is complete BS.
Yeah, just try to discredit
They're just trying to discredit them. I think there's one more you can play to the right there.
People should have the right to take their vaccine if they want to, the right to wear a mask if they want to.
If you look around, there's many different people here with similar beliefs, but with different colors, right? So at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and we all do. Each one of us defines what's essential to us, right? So we're all here for our own reasons, but again, we all want to end the lockdowns.
They're trying to say that these are all related to white supremacy.
Did it get warm in Canada all of a sudden?
I disagree. Why would they say that?
I have no idea.
No, I disagree. I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it has to do with exactly what everyone's talking about, which is the lockdown and the fact that it's inhumane, and this shouldn't be allowed. So I don't think it has anything to do with white supremacy.
Well, apparently it's white supremacy to have your own opinion. That's bullshit.
How does that make you feel? Did you hear about that?
No, I haven't, but I do not agree with that.
We believe in that people should have the right to take.
All right, update from Pastor Pawlowski.
I do. I love people. I love everyone. I love homosexuals. I love Muslims. I love atheists. I love everyone that comes and is looking for help. We're humans. We are not many races. We are one human race. Yes, I disagree with some of them. Of course I do. And I bet everyone, if you were honest, and the people that are watching this, if I would ask you, do you agree with everything with your wife, everything with your father, with your mother, with your brother, with your sister, they would have to say, no, sometimes I disagree. That's human. We agree to disagree about certain things. I don't agree with my wife on everything. Sometimes we are having a little disagreements. I disagree with my children. They want to sit in a basement and watch video games all day long, right? I disagree with that. No, you got to go to school. I disagree with my father's decision, with my brother's decisions, but we are family, we are humans. We should be allowed to agree to disagree. But I'm being hammered just because I'm different. I don't hammer you because you're different. I may disagree with your choices in life, But I still love you, and if you're going to come for help, I'll never reject you. I'll always do my best to help you. And that, I guess, right now, it turned me into enemy of the state.
Wow, that's really good.
Pastor Arthur, I love that. I love that he
man.
went that. I love that he went there.
Yeah.
Here we have in the next video, Montreal police ticketed $1,550 each protester for breaking COVID restrictions. You had to be inside after 9:30.
Et qu'il fasse ce qu'il veut. Il n'est pas question. Donc nous allons crier non au couvre-feu. Et avant cela, je veux répéter que nous sommes ici parce que nous accusons.
Okay, I don't speak French, but he sounds serious.
Yeah. So $1,500 for
wow.
And then there were two
Brave
tickets for Calgary pastor feeding the homeless that were tossed. Derek and Mission 7 Ministries.
Through Pastor Arthur.
Well,
he was the pastor feeding the homeless.
Became one of the Rebel News Fight the Fines cases. Actually, Derek and Mission 7 was another pastor.
Oh, okay.
Cases after Ramir was ticketed not once but twice for an illegal public gathering. We all know Pastor Arthur was, but Derek, like Arthur, was fined for feeding the homeless way back in April 2020. So 14 months ago, he was one of the very first Fight the Fines.
Wow.
And they put people in touch. Well, friends, the good news is from Derek Fight the Fines lawyer Sarah Miller, who's just been working so hard for the churches and pastors. She's Art's lawyer too. It's a full-time job. She recently secured a victory for the Full Gospel Outreach Center in Prince Albert, getting their $14,000 mask violation ticket kicked out.
Awesome.
Derek now it says that she now had Derek's 2 lockdown tickets tossed out of the court too.
Nice.
So once again, this is a moral victory while Calgary's mayor seems hell-bent on cracking down on Christian pastors feeding the homeless, and Calgary's police service seems to be eager to issue tickets against anything they think is an illegitimate protest. So you guys can go help fight the fines there. And then post-jail interview, Pastor Tim Stevens on his arrest and his church and faith. Just play a second there, and I'll go get my guitar with Tim Stevens.
It's gonna be, I got it.
Yeah.
If it'll show up here, let's refresh. I might have to play it behind us because it's not showing up. The video itself. It's weird. Try again. That's all right. We'll play it behind us. Well,
it's not working.
Or we won't.
Nothing's working.
This isn't connected to the Bluetooth, so.
So yours isn't working though?
Mine, well, the video won't show up on the page. I tried refreshing it and it won't.
Oh.
Well,
that's okay. Here, that's fine. We'll just.
It won't play on yours.
I know.
Because
We'll just read it. We'll just read it.
Okay.
Tim Stevens is now the 3rd pastor in Alberta to have been imprisoned for continuing to worship in defiance of restrictions implemented by the government in Alberta and Alberta Health Services. The Western Standard reported that alongside Pastor Arthur Pawlowski, Pastor James Coates, and Chris Scott of the Whistle Stop Cafe and Pastor Tim Stevens have been specifically targeted by the health minister, Tyler Shandro, as a high-profile rule violator. The idea that officials are selectively applying the law to certain individuals in order to make a point is extremely problematic. A concern which has drawn immense international scrutiny to the questionable governments of an already embattled United Conservative Party caucus. The grounds upon which Pastor Tim was arrested have also been called into question. He was arrested under the terms and restrictions laid out in May 6th, order which were amended prior to his arrest. The May 6th order originally applied to any Albertan and stipulated potential arrest for any gathering in violation to COVID. But prior to Pastor Tim's arrest, a judge ruled that the order would in fact only apply to parties named in relation to the whistle stop. The arrest of Tim Stevens occurred after this amendment, and according to the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, Pastor Tim's legal counsel, his arrest was executed illegally. Legality and politics aside, Pastor Tim Stevens is a kind man with a large family who was plucked away from them unlawfully and thrown into a maximum security prison like a
Seriously?
violent criminal.
Seriously?
His story has garnered international attention. In the eyes of the world, something is fundamentally rotten in Alberta. It is vital that we remember that these pastors who are being thrown in the bars are human beings. These experiences are traumatizing to everyone involved, including the families and congregants of these faith leaders. Other media outlets are happy to deride and denigrate these imprisoned pastors. But Rebel News is right there.
I love that Rebel News is on the front line. You guys need to pray for Canada.
Yeah.
Because it's here's the deal. So here's the answer. We're gonna finish this program. There's 17 of you watching on Facebook. I'm gonna guess all of you are gonna roll over here because we want to take you to our Pentecost show. It's not gonna be that long because we have somewhere to go. But we believe here at Resistance Chicks, and we are not alone in this, that the power of God is currently, as we speak, descending around the world in a massive way. This Pentecost, it started on the 17th, which is the Hebrew day of Pentecost, and then also today is the Christian day of Pentecost.
Yeah.
We think it's totally, totally significant. So if you want to hear more about that, join us for our Pentecost program. You can go to Resistance Chicks Church on YouTube. That show is already scheduled, so you can join the chat there while I get everything else set up. But we'll be doing the same thing live on Twitch, ND Live, and the whole 9 yards. So come right back. But before you leave, I do want to tell you that it is looking more and more likely that we will be headed to Tampa for the Health and Freedom Conference. There's still a portion of tickets left. Not a lot. I think it's less than 1,000. So if you guys want to go, you can go to thrivetimeshow.com. And I can't promise you that we will be there, but I can promise you that if we are there and you come up and speak to us, we would be more than happy to meet you guys. So I wanted to throw that out there so that you guys can know. I know a lot of you have been like, I would love to meet you guys. We can't have people coming to our home. It's never a good idea, but we're more than happy to meet you in a public place.
Yeah.
So that is a place, if you feel led by the Lord to head to, it's going to be earth-shattering. You can hear more about that as we continue on and get
there will
closer.
be another event here in Cincinnati, Ohio, a documentary on June 8th, is it?
Yeah, at the Oakley Theater. I will post that on our website. I need to get more information about that, but we will probably be attending that as well. I think it's called Seeing 2020. SEEING, Seeing 2020. You can look that up at the Oakley Theaters or just DuckDuckGo it, and you can probably find out more about that. So we'll see you guys back here in a few minutes. 2 seconds. Come right back. We love you. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's actually the truth. Bye, guys.
I was cold all alone, no place for home every day, so afraid, but you called my